Hi and welcome to Message. This is my first video, so I'd like to take a bit of time to tell you a bit about me, why I'm doing this and why I'm letting you all into my life. I'm 18, I live in the UK and I have Ehlers Danlos syndrome, or as I'm going to refer to it for the rest of the video, EDS. I've taken a year out of education to help me learn more about my EDS and about how I can keep myself healthy before I go off to university. During this year, I would also like to spend a bit of time raising awareness for invisible illnesses like EDS. Ehlers Danlos syndrome is a genetic disorder that affects a person's ability to produce or use collagen or its associated proteins. That's a complicated sentence. Essentially, all that means is that somebody with EDS struggles to make collagen. Collagen is a protein that acts like the glue in your body that keeps it all together and in the right place. It's a bit like building a house with not enough nails, and if you do that, you're going to have lots of problems that arise in multiple areas that seem unrelated and you can't see from the outside. Firstly, I'd like to talk about vascular EDS. Vascular EDS is by far the most severe form of Ehlers Danlos syndrome. It affects mostly your blood vessels and your organs, which can lead to things like arterial ruptures, aneurysms and organ ruptures. People with vascular EDS can also experience poor blood clotting, clubfoot, translucent skin that tears and bruises easily, and they also have a distinctive set of facial features. I'll show these now. Please do your best to remember them. If you'd like to find out more about vascular EDS, head on over to Annabelle's challenge. I'll leave the link in the description and I'll leave a couple of other links so that you can learn a bit about how to recognise vascular EDS. Secondly, I'd like to talk about the most common form of EDS, which is hypermobility type Ehlers Danlos syndrome. Hypermobility type has symptoms such as frequent dislocations or partial dislocations, generalised joint hypermobility, so hypermobility in the small joints as well as the large joints, chronic and early onset pain, and other things like gastrointestinal issues which aren't specifically on the diagnostic criteria but are being more frequently recognised as something that is associated with Ehlers Danlos syndrome. Thirdly, I'd like to talk about classical type EDS, which is the second most common type of Ehlers Danlos syndrome. It's very similar to hypermobile type EDS, except there is greater skin involvement. So with classical type EDS, you probably remember this guy. Who has very stretchy skin. Not everybody with classical type EDS has skin that is that stretchy, but stretchy skin is in the diagnostic criteria for classical type EDS. The skin, as well as being stretchy, is easily bruised, it feels velvety soft, and the scarring appears to be unusual, which is a bit like cigarette paper, it's often called scarring. So it takes a long time for wounds to heal, and they don't heal in the normal way, and they can often open mid-healing, and it's not very nice when that happens, obviously. Also, another thing that's present in classical type EDS is stretch marks, which are pretty common in the general population, but they are more common in people with EDS. As well as having EDS, a lot of sufferers also develop comorbidities. These mostly include things like postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, which is also known as POTS, which is a lot easier to say, which is basically an intolerance to standing up. So when you stand up, your heart races and your blood pressure drops, which leads to fainting. Another common comorbidity would be gastroparesis, which is where there's a dysmotility in the GI tract, which leads to things like slow emptying of the stomach and the need for feeding tubes, or TPN if there's complete intestinal failure. Other things that are seen alongside EDS include fibromyalgia, chronic migraines, GERD, osteoporosis, early onset arthritis, kyphosis and scoliosis. Just racking my brains, there's a lot of them. Chiari malformation, and pretty sure I'm missing a lot of them, but I'll leave links in the description so that you can read more about the comorbidities that arise with EDS and how you can recognise them, and you might be able to pick out if you have them or not. Despite all of this, most people with EDS appear to be fairly well, and unless we're using things that are obvious like multiple braces or a wheelchair or walking sticks, we look completely normal and we don't look visibly disabled, though we can be in quite high pain and we can be quite unsteady on our feet, and oftentimes we will need to do things like take the seat on the bus or take the seat on the train, and it's difficult for people with EDS because people often look at us as though we should be standing or we should be giving up our seats to other people because we don't look visibly as though we need them. And I guess one of the things that I want to do with these videos is to raise awareness for the fact that you can be quite unwell and look completely normal, if normal's even a thing. But essentially I just like people to know that there are illnesses that you can't see and that not everything is as it appears to be. And it's 2016 and we should probably know this by now. But thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in my next video.